The sun was hot on Saturday, July 5th, 1902, but a slight breeze blew through Le Ferriere as Alessandro, Mama Assunta, and the Cimarellis threshed fava beans in the field, about 130 yards from the house. The young Goretti children were also riding in the noisy threshing wagons with their mother. Maria was upstairs doing housework and mending a shirt for Alessandro. Maria's 2-year-old sister Teresa was sleeping here at the top of the steps on a blanket. Alessandro's father Giovanni was on the ground floor under the steps taking a nap. About 2 o'clock that afternoon, Maria stepped onto the landing to sew while she sat with Teresa. In the field, Alessandro handed the oxen reins to Assunta and headed to the house. He climbed the 18 steps, walked past Maria, and entered the kitchen. The husky 19-year-old grabbed a 9.5-inch sharpened file and quickly pulled Maria into the kitchen. As he jerked the door shut, Maria saw the weapon and knew immediately she was faced with a terrible choice. Alessandro violently wrestled her to the floor. Maria screamed as she struggled to get free. Alessandro later affirmed her exact response. Maria said, "No, no, God does not want this. If you do this, you will go to hell. What are you doing, Alessandro? You will go to hell." Her adamant rejection only enraged him more. In a blind fury, Alessandro began savagely stabbing her. "I struck her blow after blow," he testified later, "madly, as one crushes corn, as if I were striking wood." Any cry Maria made was drowned out by the steady hum of the threshing wagons.
After he stabbed the girl, he went into his room and closed the door, lay down to take a nap. And the wounds didn't tear, they merely punctured. First through the abdomen. He stabbed her 11 times across the abdomen, and she fainted, and he thought she was dead. Threw the knife in the closet, went back to his bedroom, closed the door, kicked off his shoes, and lay back for a nap. Well, she didn't hemorrhage very severely, just very slowly, because what he had used was an ice pick. It was really a file that he had honed down till it looked like one of our ice picks, and that's the easiest way to describe the murder weapon. Now, the wounds didn't tear, they merely punctured. And when she recovered consciousness, she called over the door, lifted up, and threw the latch back. He heard that latch snap, and he came out, saw her trying to get out, grabbed the pick, and ran behind her and stabbed her in the back 3 times, and those were the mortal wounds. They pierced the pericardium of the heart, also collapsed her left lung. And when she went lifeless against the door, he was certain she was dead. He then went back to his room and locked the door. Well, it was her whimpering that awoke the baby Therese, who was on the upper step. She had been originally sewing there, and as a result, the old man was napping down below outside in a hammock, and he came and said, "Maria, get the girl. Shut up. Therese is crying. Marie, where are you?" And she didn't answer. As he came up and he saw her in the doorway, tried to pick her up. He said, well, what's the matter? You cut yourself? Assunto, venga qui, immediatamente. And so there was all kinds of consternation as the mother came running in out of the field where she was pulling beans along with the other children.
Mama Assunta asked Maria what had happened. Through her fading voice, she told her, "It was Alessandro, Mama. He wanted to do an ugly sin, and I said no, and then he gave me many blows." Chief of Personnel for Count Mazzoleni, Antimo Nicola Romagnola, arranged for an ambulance and kept guard outside Alessandro's door to prevent his escape before police arrived. It was 6 o'clock, 4 hours after the attack, when the horse-drawn ambulance finally arrived. Maria now had a long and bumpy 7-mile ride over the unpaved roads to the hospital in Nettuno. Later, her doctors said they could not understand how Maria survived the stabbing. The trauma and blood loss from the attack should have killed her. She was brought here to the Orsenigo Men's Hospital, where she was treated in this separate, smaller building used to care for pregnant women located behind the main hospital. Dr. Francesco Bartoli tried to stabilize Maria. He discovered 14 separate stab wounds. Some of them pierced her clear through. The intestines were torn, lungs were sliced clean through, and the heart was grazed.
I found her wounded in several parts of the abdomen and chest, and as confirmed by the autopsy, there was an injury also to her heart. During the treatment which I administered, the child invoked the Madonna and remained calm. I cannot remember now her precise words, but I confirm that she was at all times lucid and in full possession of her mental faculties. Dr. Francesco Bartoli.
Before surgery, on the advice of the physicians, Maria received communion, had confession, and was given last rites by Padre Marino Giuliaro, the hospital chaplain. Surgery took 2 hours. No anesthetic was administered for fear of peritonitis.
When she was lying on the operating table, she pleaded piteously for water. Please, just wet my lips. Just a drop. Please, please. And the priest, knowing that the doctor shook his head no, and the nurses wouldn't dare move because she had wounds, open wounds in the stomach, and if she had swallowed any water of any kind, it would have caused peritonitis, and that would have certainly taken her. So the priest took the crucifix and held it before her eyes and said, Jesus on the cross didn't have any water to drink. Can't you offer it up? And spontaneously she blurted out, all right, Father.
During the night, 2 nuns remained at her bedside. Her condition worsened, and by early morning the doctor noticed her failing respiration. The end was not far off. After a short interrogation by the police, Maria asked to be enrolled in the Association of the Daughters of Mary. This is the medal that the chaplain hung around her neck. It is in the room affirmed that Maria had at that moment a miraculous vision of the Madonna. The parish priest at Nettuno, Temistocle Signore, entered the room next. It was he who posed explicitly the question of pardoning Alessandro to Maria. She replied, yes, for the love of Jesus I pardon him, and I want him to be with me in heaven. At 3 o'clock out over the city, the bells were ringing the vesper hour. In the nearby church, the Passionist priests were chanting the feast day antiphon from the 63rd chapter of Isaiah. Who is this that comes into heaven? This beautiful one in garments all red, with clothing stained like one who has tread the winepress. As the antiphon was being recited, Maria Goretti died. It was July 6, 1902, the Feast of the Precious Blood. The light-hearted holiday town of Nettuno was rocked by the news of Maria's murder. 2 days after her death, a massive crowd attended Maria's funeral, held here in the hospital chapel. This black and white checkered cloth is a piece of the dress in which she was buried. Newspapers throughout Italy reported the story on the front page. None of the Gorettis ever entered the old cheese factory again. The grieving and penniless family stayed at their next-door neighbors, the Cimarellis, in Le Ferriere, until the end of Alessandro's murder trial. The Pope, after hearing the news reports, arranged for the Franciscan missionaries to offer schooling for Maria's 2 younger sisters at no charge. They were both received at religious institutions in Rome. Assunta and her 3 sons returned to Corinaldo poorer than when they had left.
Maria Goretti was viewed by people in general as a saint. The common opinion and attitude of the people who knew her and people who came to know about her following the incident was that she was very holy. She did not allow herself to be distracted by worldly desires. The story captured the attention of all the people in Italy, and possibly even outside Italy. and some people began to visit the grave and pray to Maria Goretti as if she was already canonized.
And from the very first day at the Nettuno Cemetery, where she was laid to rest, needy souls came to ask her prayers and intercession. Almost immediately, miracles and healings began occurring at Maria's tomb.
I saw a boy of Nettuno brought to the cemetery by his mother. He was eaten away by consumption, a wasted child, Hermano by name. They prayed at Maria's grave, and the boy left the cemetery cured. From that day forward, he grew strong and healthy, and when he was 20, he was drafted for military service. Domenico Cimarelli.
Alessandro Serenelli, neither at the moment of the crime nor at the present moment, shows any signs of neuropsychopathological derangement. He enjoys full knowledge and freedom of action. Therefore, we judge him fully responsible for the crime he has committed. Signed, Doctors Giovanni Mingazzini and Nicola De Pedis. Rome, October the 15th, 1902.
Alessandro's insanity defense failed the day before what would have been Maria's 12th birthday. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, the maximum allowed for a minor. His first 3 years would be spent in solitary confinement. At 19, he was not eligible for the death penalty. One night, in early November 1910, Alessandro Serenelli had an unexpected visitor to his cell. It was Maria.
When I met Alessandro in 1965, I asked him about the dream. He said, "The dream that I had gave me a powerful push to my betterment in the spirit. It was the only time that I saw Maria Goretti in a dream. I dreamt that Maria, all dressed in white, was gathering flowers in the garden, and the flowers were beautiful white lilies, and one by one she gave them to me. They just transformed into small lights. They were lit up like candles."
Alessandro says Maria handed him exactly 14 glowing white lilies, one flower for each time he stabbed her.
Then he wakes up, and there is like a metamorphosis in him, like a change in him. He comes out of the crisis, and he begins his moment of conversion with God, and he finds himself.
On March 11, 1929, Alessandro was released from prison. He had spent 27 years of his life behind bars. He was liberated 3 years early because of good conduct, a grace for which he credited Maria. By this time, there was considerable propaganda being circulated to make Maria Goretti a saint. Pope Pius X had already held Maria up as an example of true devotion and inspiration to youth. Padre Mauro Liberate, a Passionist priest, would soon become postulator for Maria's cause. In 1929, the young women of Le Ferriere and Nettuno, dressed in the colors of the Daughters of Mary, joined in the procession as Maria Goretti's body was transferred from the original grave in the Nettuno Cemetery to the seaside shrine of Our Lady of Grace.